What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. I do want to ask you, though, look, every single conversation this offseason, and especially during OTAs, goes back to Klint Kubiak. And it's easy to see why, right? A new guy after a system of, 18 years, basically, of doing the same thing. But you have a piece that went up a little less than 24 hours ago that I found to be kind of shocking. And it talks about the accountability that Kubiak is demanding of his players. But the reason why I say it's shocking, Nick, is was it really that lax under Pete Carmichael? Because as the article presents it, it seems like it was like Carmichael just kind of chilling, letting everything go, and then players having to kind of correct one another.
Yeah, I mean, well, last year, I mean, that was kind of one of the things, and Alvin Kamara talked about it a lot, and talked about it very openly, just about how the cultural differences between Sean and going to Pete, and just that, like, things would happen in practice, and they wouldn't stop to make the corrections, and, it was just kind of, I mean, yeah, at one point, like, Alvin was asked about that, and he talked about how the players kind of had to take it upon themselves to kind of do some of that stuff, and I think there's two ways to do things, though. I mean, like, there's a way of doing things like that and kind of being, quote unquote, a player's coach or whatever. But I mean, you do got to make the corrections. You do got to have the accountability. And, it was day one OTAs with when a lot of those interviews for that story were done. And I mean, that was kind of like the thing that was standing out to a lot of players is just kind of, they had just gotten done with the film session and it was like, wow, this is different. And, that's kind of something that I think is needed. I mean, I do think some of the details went to the wayside last year, and I think that was reflected on the field. And I do think at a certain point, they did kind of figure things out last year, but it took a long time to get there. And that was one of the things a lot of the vets kind of pointed to is that they wanted that kind of, call me out in a meeting, let me know that this is wrong. If we're fumbling, make somebody run a lap. That was kind of the stuff they wanted last year. And now they're getting it. And I mean, when you make a change, there's reasons for making a change, obviously. And I think there was a lot of things Pete did well. And, I think maybe he was in a role that wasn't perfect for him. And I think he's probably in one now kind of being, the OC under an offensive-minded head coach. I think that's probably where he belongs. And so it's not like a trash Pete Carmichael thing. It's just kind of, when they make a change, there's reasons. And I think that accountability factor is probably one of the things that was missing. And they kind of missed, the bad cop, I think, in general on that side of the ball. And, I think they have people now just on this offensive staff beyond Kubiak that can go around, call people out, get their attention. The wide receivers coach, he coached with Derek Carr when he was at Fresno State. Like, he's somebody that can kind of cross that aisle and point out something bad to Derek Carr while also, doing it to the wide receivers. Derek will take that because he knows them. Like, there's a history there. He's able to do that. And I think, little things like that thought process behind, like, okay, we're going to hire this guy. He has a relationship with Derek. He's kind of, deemed, kind of like the uncle that's willing to tell you what you don't want to hear. It's kind of how players describe him. And if he can do that to Derek and the young receivers who had trouble having chemistry with Derek last year, that kind of humanizes them a little bit and puts them all on the same plane. So I think a lot of this stuff with the offensive staff was really planned out. Now, in practice, we'll see if it actually plays out how they want it to. But I think the way, that it all came together, it's all very logical. It all makes a lot of sense. It kind of feels like they got the pieces there. And, we'll see. But I do like the thought process behind a lot of the stuff they did, and we're seeing that on the field now.
Nick, what about Derek Carr? Has there been any? I mean, I guess I'll just ask this in the most lowbrow, kind of douchey way possible. But what's the kind of Derek Carr vibe check right now?
I think he's trying, like the schedule video where he kind of made fun of himself for the criticism and all that stuff. Like, I think there's a little bit of awareness that things just on a human relationship level didn't go great last year. But I do think he is who he is. But one thing I like there's like him and Demario Davis are doing some sermon at a church upcoming. Like, that just kind of, you get a leader on the defensive side, a leader on the offensive side, kind of doing something together off the field. like that at least kind of shows like a bridging of the gap. And, last year, one of the things I kind of felt in that locker room was like kind of a divide between the offense and the defense kind of feeling like, they had to carry a lot of weight, and like there was kind of a feeling of that. So like to see that, I think is a meaningful thing. Is, whatever it is, like if they're having a foundational event off the field, a church thing, like whatever it is, like it doesn't matter what it is. The fact that they're doing it together is the thing that's important. So, I mean, I think that's good. But again, I think Derek's kind of who he is though as a person. But I do think last year, like there was definitely a shift, like over that last 4 or 5 weeks where there was more chemistry, there was more understanding. And I think they started to figure some of that stuff out last year. Hopefully they hit the ground running this year. I mean, I like the stuff they're doing with Carr in practice right now. They're kind of like, working on his footwork, and he seems to be really taking to that. They got the little T-shirts that all the quarterbacks are wearing about like the footwork slogan. So there seems to be a lot of buy-in into what they're doing right now. And, seeing Derek bought into that is a good thing. I don't think that was ever really a risk, but like, him just kind of being willing to take that coaching, being, into his 30s, being willing to say, okay, like my footwork could be better. I think all that stuff is good signs. But, I think the vibes did shift last year. And I do think that the younger guys are kind of a little bit more bought into Derek. I think they all figured out how to talk to each other. And, hopefully that's something that can carry on into this season.
Now, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the second OTA that's been open to the media here?
Yeah.
Okay, so what have you maybe heard in the interim practices, and what are you kind of looking forward to most today when you get out there on the field?
I think people feel, very, very, very cautiously optimistic about Trevor Penning right now. He stayed at right tackle through all 3 practices last week. We'll see when we go out there today. It's the start of week 2. Today's the first one that's open this week. So I expect to see him out there again, though. And that's kind of one of the things that people are talking about, that he looks confident, that he looks functional, that it isn't starting out at a disaster point. Like, I think that there's a little bit of optimism about the starting spot. Now, the caveat there is that there's no real blocking or anything like that. But, the analogy I would use is like when you go to like London and you're trying to cross the street and you got to change the way, like you're looking to cross the street, like it's hard. Like you get almost hit by cars a lot. Like, so for him to be able to flip to the right side and kind of like not look lost, and like his footwork's okay, his movements are right. Like there isn't like this like hesitation. Like it looks like he's able to process it, and not everybody can. Like there's a lot of guys that can shift sides on the line. There's a lot of guys who can't too. So I think, starting out, he looks like somebody who can, and I think that gives him something to build from. So that's a good starting spot for him. I think they're kind of watching their safety depth right now to kind of see where it goes. I don't think the door's closed on bringing somebody else in, but I think they kind of want to see how that goes. Jordan Howden's sideline right now because he had off-season shoulder surgery, so he's out there, he's watching, he's close, but like he isn't taking part in the team portion of it. He did go through walkthrough before the last practice, but I think that's an area where they're kind of looking. I think they feel great about their linebacker depth. You can kind of see it with Willie Gay when you go out there. Like there's a lot of range, and it was kind of interesting to me. He was getting, when they were in base, like he was getting some snaps on the weak side, and Werner was on the strong side, which I kind of expected it to be flipped, but maybe they're just trying that out to see how it looks. So that was kind of interesting too. I think they kind of feel good about their team, but everybody does this time of year. That's kind of, they just, nobody's out there like, man, this is a disaster. Like the Panthers probably feel good about their team right now. Like everybody does. But I do think that, that Penning piece, I think there was a lot of concern, and just, you can kind of hear it's like dissipated a little bit, but there is a very, very long way to go before he's actually functional and on the field.
We'll see, man. I mean, he's young. He's young, right? Like, and he missed an entire year basically with that foot injury. Like, there's still a chance that he does develop into a starter. Maybe not great, but like a starter, if nothing else. Nick Underhill, Nick_Underhill on Twitter. neworleans.football is the site. Go sign up today. Subscribe to the NOF Network on YouTube. Nick, thank you so much for joining us again, man. Have fun out there on the field today. Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the 2 guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them. by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.